Check. Okay.
Yeah. We just need a break from everything.
Yeah, everybody
stop.
Everybody stop.
Good.
John.
Yeah.
Knowing that we need to like merge with the board and like down.
Wow. Yeah. I thought more.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah, well, just here. And then I somehow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, everything's good with that.
Okay, cool.
Busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand about this.
That's always good.
Like, it's telling you, there's your parent keys. Yeah. So you hold that down, it starts flashing, but it doesn't say,
Connected.
Account that you're working on.
it doesn't say how long it's gonna flash to connect, to play with it.
Really.
But like the parent tells you, you have to be in the.
No, we're still waiting for this. Hold it down, and it starts flashing blue, which I have.
Yeah.
And then once parents, you can press that to switch it to the device. But it doesn't say, is this gonna be solid or what? You know, how do we know what to say? And you know, the problem with this, there's so many freaking
Got it.
mobile devices around.
Yeah. They're trying to carry all their stuff.
Taxes.
At the moment.
I think it was a referral.
Yeah.
And.
No carbs, no sugar.
Hey.
Yeah.
Do such good business, but then night they will help them. You know, so this is a big deal for them.
Yeah.
The biggest one. We're at
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not for me. I remember my OCD makes me all the, yeah, I took accounting and a little bit of accounting and all that.
Managerial was good. No. That was a weed out class.
Office management.
Yeah, enough, where you kind of know some
Yeah.
stuff, but
Mhm.
don't want the full.
Exactly, exactly.
We kind of put,
You don't want to be an accountant, you want to have.
Robert's house. Oh, yeah, or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah,
all that
I have
stuff.
That would be good, yeah.
So what's going on? Yeah, just running and went to Sam Chamber, Congress Chamber meeting yesterday. It was the best networking event I have ever been to. No, no, I love that story.
Very sweet. Sorry.
It was at a golf course.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to learn about.
Should roll in, so it's fine. I told him don't sweat
I did it, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds
a matter of fact. No, it starts with an F. I'm gonna look at this one.
Mariner. You tried to hate it, yeah.
No, it's that.
I used to work with I would train,
I think
when I
it's-
went pro, I trained competitors and make some money on the side. I was.
I think they were busy.
My own grant.
Hi, Sheila. How are you, sweetie? Good to see you.
Good.
Good.
Oh my gosh. I like the lifestyle.
That's today. Really good. Thanks. I like I want to touch it.
I
That's really like that. Crazy.
I wanted to pat
It's a little
That's what
close.
I did.
Yeah,
I did the
know,
same
you're
thing.
fine.
You
You
just
can't
wanna
be
go
with
like this.
family.
Let's smell.
It was pretty cool. The superintendent of the Marshall County School District was the speaker. And I was brought up here and long story short, my great aunt was an English professor. At NYU, all the European camps, things like that. So in, the age of 7 and 8, I was playing Scrabble with the adults. Reading and literacy was extremely generous. I play it all the time on my iPad.
Yeah. He wouldn't tell me that. I need to get better. He literally was the kids in the family.
You too.
Timmy.
How are you?
I totally forgot my glasses. Hey, Edie. I'm not gonna be able to see a thing. Are we gonna do that?
I know.
Right.
Herself. And. Like, his language, everything was just.
Right.
Boom.
Zoom can.
Yeah, exactly.
She said, you know, she'll
I
always.
made it awesome. My baby. Almost here.
I was like, no
But
way.
what's nice about it is they will tell you whether. And it counts your points for you and everything like that. Yeah. But anyway, there was a gal that I had invited to sit at the table with her.
Oh, it's right here. No, this, yeah.
She.
Wait, is this yours? Oh, that's mine.
mine.
Hi, Pammy. How are you, sweetie? Good to see you. What's new? How was the Rhode Island trip, right?
Rhode Island, yeah, that was good.
That's
We
cool.
just got back from Reno last night.
Did you?
Yeah, it was good.
When's Paige getting married again?
January 4th.
Yeah, yeah,
She's
okay.
got the big bachelorette party next week.
Where?
The Cape,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. Whereabouts?
Harwich.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool.
We have a friend that owns a house there, so it's free. Other than
Good to
the
see you, sweetie.
airline.
Yeah, we're going up, next Thursday, we'll be up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be there at the same time. You should crash your best run.
Yeah, right? Oh my God, that'll be hilarious. Yeah, we're going up Thursday to like following Saturday.
Nice. So like 10 days?
Yeah, we're gonna be 10 days there and then we're going over to New Hampshire for like another 7 to 10.
Good.
I'm excited. So get out of here for a little bit.
Just you and your wife?
Well, Shelby and I are going up in Nantucket first, and then Dee Dee and my dad are going up around the same time, but they're going up to like Maine to see some relatives and like that. And then we're gonna meet them in Hamilton on the 24th, and then the 4 of us will all stay.
Great. Did we have this whole mess figured out yet?
I'm your IT person. I'm your real person. No, we don't. Okay, get it out. Okay, so this is all plugged in, correct?
Okay. You gotta
My
log.
question is, they have to sign something
You gotta-
every single house, or is it just like a sign it once for 3 months or 4 months?
Abilities.
Well, I guess. What's that?
How come
Yeah, but I'm
mine-
saying, what if you're working with fire, right? You're working with fire.
I know, it's frustrating.
The what?
One more year left. Yeah.
See, I don't even know.
She said UCF, right?
Can you, I'm actually gonna steal Pam, but not that.
Okay.
Reggie, can you hear us?
Like one more year. And what's Gabby?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. John Casey was saying it would be best for everybody if you took your camera off.
Oh, are you?
I'm just
are you
kidding.
ready to sit here?
Eventually. I'm gonna wait. We're just, we're waiting on Sean for a little bit and if people are still filing in the office, so everybody on Zoom, just, hang with us for a little bit. Maybe another
John
5.
should definitely always leave his camera off with that mug.
Are they all watching?
Let me see. Everybody want to see Pam eating her pizza?
As long as I'm not eating broccoli, I love your.
I don't like breakfast.
You heard of, yeah.
Does, Olivia knows what she wants to do? Where she wanna go?
They really just do like.
Her major is journalism.
Lost street.
So that's writing. What her dream would be,
Yeah, the office dogs.
would be to write for like,
Orientation.
sitcom.
Our office closes.
But
No, I don't know the orientation. Dinner
we have a
person at the Riverwalk.
so I don't know.
Date completed before the closing. Do you have a date for the? Yeah. You say yes. Have Rosa call.
Busy.
Oh, good. And she,
That recognition?
I already did.
I
Yeah,
did,
after she's
I
got
did,
back.
I am the
so they kind of have the same.
winner for the state of Florida for recreation of the month. Awesome.
Oh,
Is that now,
yeah.
you're gonna get that publicized everywhere? I will, I just haven't done it, they said that you can't throw everything out there until the first of August.
I know,
They just
so
haven't
like,
done it.
it's like.
But, yeah, so Roper the Sun's for the state.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Happy to say my testimony.
You did, thank you very much.
I shared the story of how you helped
Yeah, you're
me. Hi,
everyone.
Happy Friday. I know, both of us.
Yeah, that's good.
And we'll like a big hug. You're planning a hug. It's a baby now.
I didn't try to be bad.
You get married, have a baby, 8 months old.
Right?
Okay, you just getting married in January and owns a house out in Jupiter Farms. And, Sydney's in Orlando. Are you someone that works with you? She did a little bit. She has her license, but she doesn't. So she owns a house. I told her she needed a job where she knew she was making so much money in order to have the mortgage. So she does real estate.
Yeah, I have no idea.
She does travel nurse recruiting. And then Sydney's in Orlando working for the nonprofit When We're Child, doing, helping girls that are in sex trafficking. Yeah, so she takes them food, goes with them to court, like helps them get through the whole stuff. Finding resources to get out.
I don't have any idea where she works.
Like
So I have the name exactly what the matter.
well, it's a nonprofit called One More Child. Yeah,
So I tried to make it.
she really likes it. She's been doing
See
that
the daughter on FaceTime.
kind
a
of-
couple times.
Yeah.
It's great. Call her daughter.
Yeah.
He actually should be here. He's got his license here too. So he's trying to do real estate. Hold on.
I'm like, you just go back.
So down big time. Like in.
Imagine less than 90
Now
days.
I'm like super busy.
She is not even speaking.
I don't know why. Maybe when you get back from, Europe.
It's not like they're
Well, no way. Great pictures and stuff.
I just had a code name today.
It was fun though.
Nothing. Story of this world. That's what I'm saying.
Like, yeah, like you would think that this.
I was nervous.
Wednesday, a listing appointment that I'm getting, so.
And I didn't hear Trump talk.
Coming in
It was
for a couple of different homes.
It was fucking mad. Big
Oh, I thought you-
topic.
Like you're supposed to get that, it says these directions and it starts from here,
What?
but it doesn't. Like, it doesn't
Just
say.
come out or go that out.
I just couple of hours.
We need to get it.
Her fiance's from Rhode Island.
But it's like.
His parents gave a shower.
Paramount, go down one of the.
I've never been
So
there.
far, we were doing.
Right.
Once paired, so if you press that pair, you can switch the answer to that device. When successfully connected, we briefly flash blue. So like, but it doesn't say anything.
Right. Nice. Newport was
So like, what do? You just let it.
Need a vote to work.
No, we still have to go.
Yeah, we went to, I went to.
But we. That's who the
Oh, I
fastest-
think there's something. That's both, right?
You do that first, then you do that, just.
It's like a cute little downtown
Yeah, so
area.
once this is flashing, I guess that's.
Oh, yeah, we think it's so good, but then we, I was driving to Boston.
So this is
My
flashing
friends
right
don't
now,
need.
opening the gateway for that.
She did eat, but she
We're
did,
not
but
in
you,
there,
you
we
want.
cannot.
Okay.
So we have to figure out.
It's just 1088.
It was 14 or she
I don't
didn't
think
want
this
to,
is
she just
starting.
left.
That could be right.
We probably only got about 10.
Fun, but I mean, if.
Fill out, but it's
So
still
we
up
can
to
put-
all you can charge.
It did, yeah. See, it says fully charged to keyboard. It's
Like my rock.
been like, it was like 2 hours.
Come on, Bailey.
She said, yeah, I want to take pictures. Disney or Orlando. He's from the country, but yeah, never went anywhere. So I said, okay, get it, you know, and then she's like, okay, okay, so $170. We get there, they upgrade us.
2 hours, 5 hours.
Patience is not one of your first.
No, I mean, I can be, but I don't want to.
Everything.
Like, if it's.
So your brother
something
and
that's not
amazing.
working.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
nice.
I want
They really like, even when they voice, like, they're
This thing's been.
That's really nice. It's so nice to have.
But that's you,
Yeah,
you're not a
it's
Mac
a
guy.
nice hotel. That's really nice. When we just go to Australia, she got, we stayed in. They did the same thing. We brought like. So just, you know, we say, wow, you got like some cheese. And then we just got it back.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Your fishing rods that are put in.
That's cool.
What about it? Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So she works with Shelby.
Yeah, we're leaving next Thursday. For like.
Good
2
for her.
weeks.
I get a promo for manager who comes along. We've been to Hawaii. I'm like, can you pick a place that we met? Oh, I'm joking. Yeah.
We'll be back.
And next month, then we're gonna go because she'll be working
You
on
want
it.
to try and eat that following
But
Thursday?
Gabby and I were going to
One after that.
Colombia.
It's like 12.
And of course, and then Chile. We will play. There's some kind of program. Like, if we think like 1 and 2. We will get our separate agency. We really get to do all the job, all the work. Okay.
The 12th or the 19th? Yeah, the 12th and the 19th, on Thursday. So I might not be able to do the 19th.
How long will you be? 26, that's how.
I may be going.
No, and he's just talking about his, I always feel like I can't leave now. I always feel like, what can? I always feel like my real estate stuff won't get done. I don't know everything on my phone. Like, how do you do? I just wrote 2 contracts while I was in Reno.
Well.
It was a pain.
Yeah.
And the showing you say, was a lot of, so they expect you can't come out, you move to go and we'll give you with the house and the showers, right? I think
So
you
it's-
didn't show, you'll.
So we got the Zoom up here. This is from my Zoom.
Yeah, you'll buy your thing. So.
We just closed on another
So
one
if
today.
you join the Zoom.
Yeah, you
I
were just
can shut
organized.
this audio off.
Yeah.
And
Just
then,
go to get out.
you're on.
And it's not like I'm going all the time.
Yeah. Probably have to do it like that.
You'll go for a month.
How you not-
Back.
And then you watch your car. Because you don't want to go and see that. Then.
Well, I guess you could.
In Fiji, you like to be in a month.
Guess you could-
All the time.
Everybody likes it, right? Yeah, I just tested it. You're okay?
Yeah. As long as you-
I don't, we don't, because Fiji is overtrained on the idea. I don't know that. I feel like, when there's so many.
Oh my God, what's up?
So we did one culture, like. Stay there. I didn't know they do it. We had a big on the water. Yeah. The water. But we visited villages. We did the culture.
She's like.
We had a big. So when they also go the big restaurants with them and they tell you to do the pizza and drink the tea. So I like to get you see the culture more than just Hop Island. But all of tourists, if you see, they go to Hop Island. We grew up in Hawaii. No, I did not. We went to. It's just the same.
Oh my gosh, they're mad. They're in their terrible twos. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Pedro.
How are you?
Oh my gosh. No. Pretty good. January 4th.
Okay,
5 months.
we're about to get rolling here, just setting up the slideshow, so just bear with us another 5 minutes. We'll get this baby rolling.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Sorry for the delay.
I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. And now her bachelorette party is next week in the Cape. These brides these days, they're just like, all this stuff they get to do.
Go here
Yeah.
and there and.
Their generation.
I know.
Yeah, me, like, this generation. And it's like, is it your daughter? It's such a nice.
My daughter.
That's more fun.
Yeah.
They just get to work on the road. Daughter-in-law.
Yeah. Oh,
It was
yeah,
really
so
hard for them.
a little
They
bit
just
more
was
challenging.
like,
It is.
We did our
She could
shower.
only
take so many days.
So nice, so easy.
That's nice.
And my daughter, but yeah. That's hard. Okay, for me.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I have on mine.
Oh, really? Your daughter is. That's nice.
Yeah, they're very close.
Thank you for the feedback.
That's nice.
And they've been together for about 7 years. We know her very well. But-
Yeah, that's hard.
Cause they don't live out in Connecticut.
That's hard.
And they're together and
Mm.
trying to navigate.
Mhm. That's hard.
But, you know, we have to do, right?
Mhm.
But they weren't gonna be all.
That's right.
Oh,
How old is your son?
20.
How old my son is.
Is it really?
Mhm.
Where are they?
So my son's already married. He's been married,
Oh, okay.
I think,
That's right, this year.
3 or 4 years,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And they have an 8-month-old. But yeah, my daughter is getting married at White Trail Club.
What's
That's in Jupiter Farms.
Junior Farms. They're getting married up in it's a place called the Tree House. It's up in Bureau.
Oh,
It's a wildflower farm.
this is a rose farm, White Trail Club, the rose.
It's really pretty.
Wow.
It's on the water there. So
Nice.
it'll be, yeah, it'll be pretty. Yeah, small, small wedding.
I wish mine was small.
How many, you think?
I think they're inviting like 215.
That is big these days.
I know.
My
So
daughter had 100 and the people were like 100. But
Wow.
that felt big.
so I'm hoping at 215, we end up with like 175.
Yeah.
But who knows?
We ended up going the other way. It's mainly because some family, extra family. Yeah. It's like, when she said, I don't think half these people are coming. I said, you can't assume that.
That's what my daughter keeps saying too.
Wow.
But then when we went to the couple shower, they were all like, that was in Rhode Island. So those are the people we were expecting not to come.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we've already got, we're coming. And I'm like, oh my God, we have room.
The shower, a bunch of her family. members, that it was like 10 people.
Like it's close the other day.
But they don't do that. People last
Right.
And Matt and Caitlin, when they got married last August, because they both went to college.
Morton's like,
I mean,
bye-bye.
she had.
My daughter too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he had, yeah, he had 8. And then they got married.
Yeah.
But I mean, she could be. I just lost my mind. Huge train station down in downtown Kansas City. You see it all the time, like when the Kansas City Chiefs football is playing and all that, they light it up. It's it's a landmark, but anyway, but they probably had about 2.
Like, here's one I said.
It was insane. But
That is a really.
we helped pay, we did the rehearsal dinner and her parents did the wedding. But we helped.
Yeah.
Because her wedding was so much. But because Matt does really well,
Internet.
he was also able to take out the bulk of it. I think he picked up.
That's
Out of
nice.
his own pocket.
I'll tell you what I had. They had she only got a planner for like. the weekend. Everything done by-
Yeah.
They were driving. Everything you said. The one down here, June, right? They're like in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
That
they
was the
have,
best thing I
like,
could have done because as soon as I was done, it was like, whoosh.
See, we have a planner. I think she's considered the month of.
This is like, this role is 3 months out, so we're still saying, and actually it's the things you're afraid you forgot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So our planner, you can email her as much as you want, like the whole year. Then I think you get like 2 face-to-face meetings and then like, of course, she runs like the whole thing the day.
Yeah.
Who knows how that's gonna.
I mean, they said to
Really?
me-
You only get 2
I think
face-to-face
so, yeah,
meetings?
like where she
That's
comes, yeah. This is my first buddy and I
Can
hope
you
it
imagine
goes
if we
like-
did that as realtors?
Oh, I know.
You know, we can
Yeah.
only have 2 face-to-face
Well, I'm honestly
conversations. but you
thinking
can
about
email.
Yeah, but
Depending
you
on
can
what-
email me.
depending on what my commission is.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That might be the way it ends up now.
You know, I mean,
That's
well,
exactly.
I've started developing and working on, it. I should get everybody to help write it because I sent one version to Greg and see the little guy, but it was like, I was showing, you've probably seen these before, but it shows like, if we agree on 2%, these are the services you'll get. This is 2.5 or, what, how did I don't remember, I think I did 3.
You did 2, 2.5, and 3. I
2,
think.
2.5, and 3. But I didn't have enough different, I mean, like, that was my first draft. I hadn't had a chance to work on it. I gotta get it done because I want it
So
done.
essentially, you're saying you can have the bronze, silver, or gold.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
So like, and what I've learned in this listing that I have right now, is to me, I've spent about as much out of my budget that I should spend.
Yeah.
Right, on 2.5. So I really want to think about what do I see that, you know.
Yeah.
So this is more for the listing side, not a buyer side.
Yeah.
See, I just feel like, I just know myself and I always end up doing the stuff that I. Like,
And that's,
yeah,
that I'm the same way.
yeah, like you're gonna.
I know.
How you
For
face that.
2%, you're gonna end up
Everybody
doing
the
a 3%.
Because you want to
Well-
know, yeah.
Your screen share on
The
Zoom,
hope is
right?
that, and
Oh,
there's services that are like.
So you're, yeah, so you're good there.
This no matter
So
what,
everybody
right?
here
So
can see it and they can see it on Zoom.
I mean,
So yeah, we're good.
like, yeah. Different things like that. I'm not gonna do that.
See, no, I don't think postcards do anything anyway.
I don't
Never
either.
do 'em.
I'm
I
gonna
think it-
tell you this, I have a.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this week's been good, but what I did when I sent it to the neighborhood, it's really for us, right, to meet people.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
see what you're
That's
doing.
true.
I think
That's
that's
true.
more
Get your
the
name out.
value for
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
To
All right, guys, we're gonna get started. Sorry for the delay a little bit, but everybody was eating pizza, hanging out, relaxing, chilling, so no big deal anyways. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys on Zoom for hanging out a little bit, working with us. We got a lot of people here in the office, a lot of people on Zoom. Kind of want to touch base on everything that's going on with this August 17th rollout with NAR. And kind of just I know we've done a couple meetings on this, kind of just want to keep everybody up to date, let everybody know what's going on, answer any questions. I know there'll be a plethora of questions, so that's what we're here for. Looking forward to answering some of them. I know Olivia is on the chat too, I believe. So between her and Sean here in office, let us know, and myself, obviously, Dee Dee's here. Just let us know if you have any questions, but we got Sean here. He's gonna roll in and we're gonna go through some of the documents that we've been looking at, reviewing together and go through that. So appreciate you guys coming, and yeah, let's get it rolling.
All right, guys, welcome. Sorry for being tardy to the party, but this was supposed to be Zoom and apparently some technical difficulties. I.e. Craig.
Greg,
So-
I agree, he is difficult.
You know, if you were here the last time for the presentation, I mean, I don't know how much everybody jumped into it, but pretty much everything we said was gonna happen in the last presentation before the settlement. So, you know, we're at the same point we were where we thought we were gonna be at that time. So what we wanted to first go through is kind of working with sellers, some of the listing agreement changes. And then obviously the big issue, not issue, but the buyer brokers agreements that everybody, I think, really has questions on.
The blocks.
Yeah. Sorry.
So the listing agreement and how it's changed. With me, guys. Okay, one of the issues, or not issues, one of the items that have changed, and they've added some minor language, you see like in the buyer's agreement, they switch from buyers to consumers and things like that. I'm not really highlighting any of the small details that they changed, but really the highlights, the overview of the high impacts that are going to relate to the change on both the buyer's agreement and the listing agreement. So under the seller's expenses, one of the things that they've changed, instead of just having the seller agrees to pay, mortgage discount closing costs, they've also added in concessions. One of the things that they did remove was the percentage of closing expenses that the seller could pay on behalf of the buyer. So if you want to do it based on a percentage, you're going to have to do it in the additional terms. Right, because they used to have percentage of purchase price
As a commission.
as no for seller's concessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
We
never
don't have
seen the seller's concession on a listing agreement.
Well, they added concessions. They added the concessions language. It just used to say mortgage seller will pay mortgage discount and other closing
Okay,
costs.
I guess seller expenses, I've never
No.
seen that on a listing agreement.
It's new.
This is a new one, yeah.
The newest one was supposed to be used.
Oh,
And you better make sure that you can conform simplicity and it's the most up-to-date one because it's August and this has been updated twice.
So Barbie, just the FYI, the exclusive right of sale list agreement, the only one you're supposed to use is under list package.
On our
It's
F
the
file,
only one there, so you don't have to make a choice.
on our F files,
And on the
right?
bottom,
I don't wanna have to-
bottom it says ERS 20 provides 720.
It's the only one on there.
Sean, real quick, so right there, so you mentioned like if we want to use the percentage, we have to use the additional.
Terms on page 4.
Is a concession including, commission that you might want? Like, yeah,
Or
concessions.
seller's concessions to the buyer in general.
Could it be a commission?
Yeah. It can be, they can use it towards anything they want. But you can't advertise on the MLS and otherwise that the concessions is going towards commission.
So the listing agreement will no longer have commission percentage, even if they want to pay the buyers?
No, it'll be on there. Yeah, that's where we get on page 2.
That's on the third page.
That's what.
You put the total on 8 of the compensation, total. And then
Section 10 of the new list.
So then the concessions, do you have to fill that out? They can decide to give a concession later, right?
Yeah, that's what
So I wouldn't have my seller, if I'm going to a listing presentation, I would not have my seller write anything in that line at all, because you're working for the seller, you're trying to get him the best amount of money for his purchase. So I wouldn't even force him to commit to giving a concession on that line.
Well, and I don't think it's really, it's a great idea to begin with. So, when we get down to the changes in the compensation, you still have the right to give cooperating compensation to the broker, to the buyer's broker. So it gives you those 3 options, but you should be prepared for the questions that are going to come about what we all thought was, brokers commissions. We had the disclosures are not set by law, fully negotiable. We all knew that was coming. Retained deposits are there, but Kind of to skip past that is really where we go to buyer's broker. And buyer's broker again enforces that there are no commission set by law, fully negotiable. And instead of really what appeared to kind of be a requirement in the seller's eyes, and at least that was what the settlement was about, and they even had language that you can't put it on the MLS if you don't agree to this. That's been completely removed. So they're gonna have basically three options. You can offer cooperating compensation as their first option. If you're going to go this route, you handle it the same way as you did before. Total compensation up top, and then your cooperating compensation under 10A. And 10B is gonna be seller compensation directly to the buyer's broker
On the listing agreements. not
on the listing agreements.
Okay.
Correct. And then obviously option 3 is no compensation at all.
So I have a question.
Yep.
If the seller agrees to pay the buyer's broker,
Mhm.
2.5%, let's say.
Mhm.
But yet that buyer came with an agent that the buyer also agreed to pay their agent 2.5%.
Mhm.
Who's paying?
The buyer is paying the agent.
So even if the seller agrees, so we don't,
Yep.
then the buyer,
So
so
the buyer's getting both sides.
No. Seller, they're getting the seller's commission if it's already. if
yeah,
it's
that's what I
already-
thought.
Yeah.
It's not the
They're
buyer's
they're
broker.
not getting both, and that's the big thing. You gotta get out of your head.
Seller pays.
What you agree
first.
to with the buyer is that just setting the max you can receive from any way that you receive it, because there's gonna be different ways to conceive it, and it might come from multiple parties.
Okay, so you could get half from the buyer and half from the seller.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
But the seller pays first, buyer would bring up the rear,
Yes.
lack of a
Yeah.
better way of
And
putting it.
good luck getting that.
Thank you.
Really?
It
You
might
think?
not- It might be hard to sue that buyer. Get the
Really?
money if they don't pay. I mean,
But
But
if we have a buyer brokerage agreement.
it doesn't matter. I mean, buyers. can
No
do
buyers
whatever
It's
they
a
want.
forcible.
Really?
outside contract.
really, I would,
Just keep it the same.
so we really kind of got 4 ways to do this. You've got, you can run it through seller's concessions and just throw that out there. I do believe most of the MLSs are now removing, they used to have a field for
Buyer's
the amount of concessions that, you could search for. I think they thought that's gonna trigger agents to start searching by seller's concession field to see if there was available compensation, to where it's now gonna be like a yes or no. So at the end of the day, you're still gonna have to contact somebody if you
Can I
find
tell
out
you
that
something
amount.
real quick on that? So, does NAR prefer you or make it mandatory that you should take a commission from a buyer first?
To make
Then,
it,
like, do they want you to get paid from the buyer?
let's get to the buyer here in a minute, because the kind of that language discloses how that's handled. But, it's probably good time to start thinking about those conversations that you're gonna have. Well, now's not the, before was the time.
So.
But for some of the slackers, and I'm a slacker myself, so
So
I'm behind.
when you are filling out that, go on paragraph 8, it says, I'm going to, I charge 6% for my services to sell this house. You then run down to paragraph 10,
10A.
and you need to check 10A all the time, because that says that if you want, but that's saying the seller will, that's the old way we said it, so I'm going to give them 3% to the buyer's broker. You want to make sure that 8A covers what you're writing in 10.
Right.
Otherwise, if you put 3% because I'm going to sell a house, that's how much I charge to sell a house. And you put 3% down on, or 6% down on 10A, you're telling the seller you're paying 9% commission. So you do 8 first as total commission, you do 10A, how you are splitting that, there's actually. There's the three of them, what Sean is saying is, it's A, B, and C. The first one, seller authorizes the broker, home sales, to offer compensation of 3% to the buyer's agent. Option B is the seller authorizes the broker to offer compensation from the seller. So you gotta watch that, from the seller. It's not from what I've negotiated up on 8A. If I've negotiated 5% commission up on 8A, and he fills in 10B and says, I'm going to give 2.5% to the buyer's broker, he's just gone 7.5% on this listing.
So I would, if it were me personally, I would let the seller. I wouldn't worry about
Right.
cooperating compensation.
Why?
Number one, I think it gets you, there's some liability that you get rid of there. The second reason is to compete with some of the changes that are happening in the market. And I'll give you a good example, which is like EXP. And EXP is a big broker. They're not offering cooperating compensation at all in any state, in any form. And their whole pitch is, my focus is solely on you. I don't want to be involved with, I think it's a conflict of interest to be involved with you and a potential buyer. I can't, have a fiduciary duty and do my best to both parties. It's just not going to happen. So that's going to come up. You hear that come up with some of your clients. So,
But then how will it work if you are, helping a buyer and then Dee mentioned, it's gonna be hard if they don't pay you, then what's the solution? then?
if you're helping a buyer,
Like,
what?
yeah, if you are a buyer's agent. Like,
If
how
you're a
will it
buyer's
work?
agent, that's where the buyer's agent's agreements are going.
Oh.
This is just from the listing seller side, those presentations you're gonna have. I imagine you're probably gonna get asked what commission you should pay, since it's being more separated instead of just the conversation of 5 is general, I give 2.5. I think there's gonna be more thought, and I think it won't happen immediately, but I think through the next years, that more and more of these conversations and sellers and buyers become educated, they're gonna start asking questions of, why should I give an agent that much? And then that's gonna kind of reflect on their job and what you're doing for the seller as well. So I think about the strategy on how you're gonna.
John, do you
Gonna-
think that it's less liability for the broker to go with A? I do, because otherwise the broker's trying to get it from the seller directly, right?
Yeah, and is it paid at closing if it's from the seller directly?
Yep.
It is?
Yep, that's what that says. And those are the other agreements that we have for the buyer's agreement and the compensation agreements. Will help out with that.
So I have a question for the people in here. Are the people in here going to suggest to their sellers that they pay the buyer's broker or not?
I would,
Absolutely.
because it's
You?
gonna bring
Are
the
you-
opportunity
Right.
for more buyers to come
That's-
in.
That's what I've been doing. What are you guys gonna do? Suggest that they pay the buyer's broker?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I think
Which
that's
is
the
the
way most people are gonna do it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Unfortunately, the whole situation is a national lawsuit, and Florida never had a problem.
Right.
Because we always had paragraph 8, I work for this, and out of this, I'm going to, in paragraph 9, it says, out of what you're paying me, I'm going to offer to a buyer's broker. So we've always had that. It's always been disclosed to a seller, so a seller can't be surprised and say, I'm taking you to court, I paid too much.
Mhm.
No, you signed the listing agreement and agreed that you're paying me 6%, and I'm going to, what I'm doing with my money is none of your business, but the state says on paragraph 9, I have to tell you, I'm giving 3%
Mhm.
to the other party. So it's a national lawsuit that has brought about all these changes. So I'm not saying it's business as usual, because now you have to, if you're working with on the buy side, you cannot show a property, even a virtual tour or an open house without a BBA. well, he's gonna go on to about that, but as
And
far
it has
as.
to have a money amount too, it can't be their money.
Right.
So, yeah,
We'll go on to that later, but as far as listing agreements are concerned, it kind of changes it up a little bit, just the wording, just watch what you're putting in the boxes.
Okay.
You're right, John, it's basically the same. You get-
Mhm.
But you can do. But these places like EXP apparently are not gonna do that.
But
So,
I feel that's gonna work nationally for them.
I wouldn't worry about what
Yeah.
EXP is gonna do. I just worry about what we're gonna do.
And it's
And what's
probably
gonna make
also,
our.
because they're like, aren't they worldwide?
Yeah.
But they don't, they're not, like, they don't have to, yeah.
Mhm.
And if they get sued, boy, then.
They'll get
well,
their
I think it's
ass
the
in.
person, well, there's no lot, like, they're putting themselves out of this. There's no
Yeah.
lawsuit is, the agreement is between the seller and the buyer's brokers. So they're completely removing themselves out of that equation. And you can still have your seller pay 2.5% and have them pay it directly.
On line
So,
10.
yeah.
B. Paragraph 10B.
Right.
There might be a strategy for negotiating buyer's compensation if you need to. Buyer's brokerage agreements, all right. Term. Term is whatever you want it to be.
wait, does someone have notes?
Are you
Oh,
kidding me?
she
I
made
was
it.
on a Zoom call
Oh.
with Florida.
And I'm sorry, let me back up. There's a
My OCD kicked in.
pre-touring agreement, there's a showing agreement,
There is.
and there's an exclusive buyer brokerage. agreement.
Say the name of the 3 agreements again.
Pre-touring agreement,
Pre-touring.
showing agreement, and the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement.
Pick one.
It's overkill.
And there's modifications, so.
There's modifications, and at the end of the day, like a pre-touring, you're gonna end up needing to get another agreement signed. Is I would just focus on the buyer's brokerage agreement. You know, don't confuse yourself and confuse them more. They're already gonna be confused. Is stick to this one agreement. And I think the thought process behind a lot of that was there's less substantial language in like the pre-touring agreement and the showing agreement, so it's easier to kind of influence somebody to sign it. But
So just go.
at
with
the end of the day, you have to
exclusive.
go over this stuff anyway.
Yeah, so just go with the exclusive agreement, call it a day.
And then
Just-
if you do that one, you don't have to have them re-sign.
Correct.
It's good for a amount of
Yeah.
time.
Well, it's good for whatever time frame. I think
Right.
you're gonna run into those scenarios like, okay, it's our first date. Like, I don't know if you like me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I like you. So why am I gonna commit to, and you can expect that question to come up all the time. I'm not gonna give you 6 months. I'm not gonna give you 9, I'm not gonna give you 30 days because I don't even know you. So, you know, you're gonna have to put a strategy together with how you're gonna deal with those scenarios when somebody calls you, maybe it's an online lead and says, I want to go see this house. You know, specifically online leads, probably you're not going to be the ones that are just going to jump into a 30-day, 60-day. So, you know, that scenario for you may be,
But
okay,
the
I'll go
term,
shoot.
though, But the term would supersede that. So you could say it's gonna be from February 1st to February 2nd. If it's a one-time showing on the exclusive,
If it's February.
instead of doing a pre-touring or a showing agreement,
Mhm.
you could go with the exclusive, like you always would, and just name your term.
You could name your term, but what I'm saying is everybody's not going to be accommodating to your term, because you're not on their term. They don't know you, you don't know them.
Got it.
So if I met you for the first time, I don't think I'm going to commit to
You
you.
love me.
I do, but you know,
For a day. though.
if we just
For a
met
day.
for like 30 days,
Yeah.
I honestly, if it was me, I'm not sure I'm going to commit you. Again,
Right.
I don't even know you.
But she's saying a day,
So.
February 1st to February 2nd, anybody can.
Exactly. And then, you know what, if they want to go out and see more stuff after there, modify the agreement. I mean, but there should be a point in time where you're not modifying it day by day.
Got it.
At the same time, you know, buyer's brokerage agreements have been in numerous other states. And, you know, I think sometimes we get tied into this mentality of we have to tie them in as long as possible, where there's been a lot of other individuals that have been some pretty big mega agents that have been very successful, just allowing them to walk at any time. And pitching the value is, if I can't provide you value on a consistent basis every day, you have the right to terminate. I shouldn't be working. And they may accept that there's gonna be some loss. But honestly, it's nothing different than we've been doing right now without an agreement. But the gain they're making from having that strategy, talking with clients, is putting them ahead of their competition that are trying to lock them down immediately into these long-term
Force their
agreements.
hand.
Is there going to be verbiage on the home sales website as far as buyers are required to have a buyer's broker agreement signed with an agent prior to seeing houses?
Is there what? I'm sorry.
I saw this when someone's going Googling on whatever and they come across the home sales website.
Yep.
Is there going to be verbiage on the website to make, again, educate the consumer that the way showings are done now, you need to sign an agreement with an agent prior to seeing a house?
I mean, that would be up to the marketing
Yeah,
team
we're
right
working
there,
on it.
but in all honesty, everybody and their brother and sister, I think at this point know about it. The lawsuits still aren't over, and I'm not.
I wouldn't put that on the website.
I wouldn't
'cause it might
either.
Scare people away. I
Mhm.
think it's like eat them face.
They're not gonna know that that's everybody.
Yeah, I was
They're
gonna
gonna
say
think it's just-
realtors are gonna know it, but your consumer is
Just wait for a first meeting, you'll know.
At the end of the day, I mean, they have to sign, it's gonna be the same
Yeah,
answer.
I know.
whether-
Bless you.
They don't.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
On the listing agreement, if you are with a seller and they agree to 6% and they agree that I'm gonna take 6% and the buyer's agent's gonna take 6%. But then a buyer agent shows up, shows their client and miraculously never asks about commission. I don't still have to give that 3% away, right? Like I can give it back to the seller or,
But you said if you have, your total commission is 6% and you're offering
3.
as 3% as cooperating
Mhm,
broker,
mhm.
would you have to give it to
The broker if they
the
never
broker
ask.
if they didn't ask?
Right.
Well,
They're
I
not
think
gonna
in
do
all
that.
honesty, I think you got it. There's gonna be a tightening on ethics, I think.
That's not.
And I
okay,
think
that's not
it's
gonna-
kind of like,
No, wait a
Now, that
second, though. If the buyer did an agreement with the buyer's agent for 3% and that buyer's gonna pay cash and you're trying to help your seller save money and they don't ask for the commission, then why wouldn't it go back to the seller, that 3%?
But why wouldn't you discuss
But
it
would you
with
put
the
it on MLS
cooperating
concession?
broker anyway, so that way there's no surprises on either side?
Well, because if the cooperating broker doesn't ask me what the commission is,
Have
because
you ever asked?
they're already
have you
getting
ever had someone come along and not been asked that, like,
well, it hasn't happened yet,
I
so.
understand that, but the
I think
agents-
it's
the agents know that they're not working for free.
I think
so
that's
it's a
so
bad
few and
sort.
far between,
I'm
because that's what
asking
everybody's
because I
paying.
have a buyer who is paying cash and is perfectly happy paying the buyer's commission.
I
So do I still try to,
follow your question,
Mhm.
but, and I haven't even got an answer from Florida Realtors Legal. And we'll go to a 3.5%, 2.5% thing. If the seller was offering the 6% to
Mhm.
you as a selling agent, and the buyer already has got a buyer who's got the disposal
Mhm.
wherewithal to pay his own agent, the seller has committed to pay 3% of the purchase price to a buyer's agent. But the agent can't earn more than 3%.
right,
So if I was the buyer and the savvy buyer and you're able to get it from the seller,
Mhm.
that 20,000 that I was paying you,
Mhm.
I can put it towards my house. So I
Right.
paid 800,000, I'm now getting it for 780 because the seller is giving 3% to you and I don't have to pay you.
right. But aren't you trying to do the best you can for your seller? That's my point. Like, if
Well,
the
that's
seller
what I thought
doesn't
as well,
have to
because
pay,
that line 3 on the first page, I don't want to force my seller saying you gotta pay 15,000 in, the wording of it should be seller may
Right.
Right.
pay it. It does say seller will pay this much in concession.
right?
So that verbiage really has to be sorted out for the legal.
So can you write that then in the terms? Is that on the listing agreement? So if she's got the listing,
Mhm.
right? And the seller says, I'm willing to pay 6%. And in walks Mr. Buyer and says, well, I'm gonna take care of my agent at 3%. Can you put that in the terms that if the buyer is willing to pay his agent compensation, then I do not have to pay out of my pocket?
Well, you're far.
Why are we making the deal more complicated? That's
Because it's
really,
gonna be
that's really the
complicated.
question. It's like, why are we going through all this? Like, this is what he's agreed to pay. Negotiate the price. Why are we
Yes.
going with all
Do it
the,
off the
Right.
price.
do it off the price? Don't sit
Okay.
here and try to finagle commissions. If you, and specifically if you don't have to, because everybody's gonna be in the
Right.
beginning confused
Well, I
about.
it didn't even cross my mind about working.
It's
I'm
called
sorry.
answer your phone. and an agent call.
Another thing you want to put on here, make sure you got your transaction fee.
We're changing ours on. that
So,
one,
you
we're
know,
automatic.
You know, in those instances where maybe you forget to, have the buyer's broker's disclosure, the home sales broker's disclosure, I could say. If you have this signed, you can't go back after and then have him sign something that has him paying more.
So we're
what
actually
is
getting rid of the broker disclosure that you
Thank
guys been
goodness.
using.
Just put it on.
That's going away at files on all the contracts, all the listing agreements is going to be adding right where Sean already has it. It's gonna already be input for the proper transaction fees.
No more.
So you guys don't even have, there'll be no more broker disclosure. You guys have to sign.
Nothing.
And then
Good.
everything will already be on the listing agreements and the contract. So
And-
so
and the
you guys
rentals.
don't have to remember to fill it out.
Nice,
So
Rentals.
rentals,
Sean,
listings,
Sean,
everything.
can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. I'm actually gonna have to hop off of the call shortly. I just wanted to say hi to everyone virtually. Um, and I'm sure this coming week and with the changes, weeks, I should say, if you all have questions, I do welcome them. If you can though, to help me out and you out is to email me directly with the form you have questions on. That way we can look at it together as soon as I can call you back and get all those questions answered in one quick call.
Okey dokey.
Okay, if you call me and then if you call me, I'll remind you need to email me and then I'll call you back. So it'll save you a second call. And you're in good hands. Sean's got this covered.
Thank
So
you,
we're
Olivia.
being prepared for the flood of calls, which is already kind of starting, so we can, once 17 hits, it's like, good, we're going on vacation. Another thing they added is the retainer. So you have the ability to charge them a non-refundable retainer now.
And is that a good thing, bad thing? Is anybody gonna do that?
Well, I think it's a good thing that they put it there. And I
But it's
think,
payable at the time of signing the agreement.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's what I'm asking is anybody in here gonna do that?
I
Or
think
not?
it's just buyer specific, honestly.
I think you'll have spin-off services. I think that's really what's gonna happen. You're gonna have people that are just gonna do contract preparation and maybe CMAs. I mean, you're already starting to see those develop. You know, but kind of at the end of the day, when you're talking about what you charge for as a percentage, you know, it's also something to kind of lean back against when they say, hey, it's 2.5. Can you do any better than that? You know what? Yes, I can. I'll do 2%, but it's non-refundable right up front. How does that sound? Well, what if it doesn't sell? Or what if I don't find something? You're absolutely right. What if you don't find something? I've spent all this time. I've shown you all these. I've driven you 900 miles, 40 houses, bottle of Tylenol, all these expenses.
Don't forget the whiskey.
Yeah, now
I'm
the
taking the
alcohol-
risk and, you know, my fee is associated with that risk. But if you're confident you're gonna find something, hey, let's do it right here. I'd rather. Well, I guess depending on the size of the deal.
said you should ask. That's just exactly what you said, is that your gas, your time, your expenses, everything you've done. And they suggested 1,000 in the APR training. Then I was like so shy about asking. I get what she's saying. I said 500, and she goes, "Well, I understand that." And it wasn't even, it was a non-issue. She's like, "So do I give you that check now?" And I said, "Yes." And
Well, I mean, I think you could, there's multiple scenarios there is
do it.
you can have them guarantee a portion because you can also combine, whatever percentage you want to charge them with a retainer. So, yeah, I mean, that's where the negotiation starts. Maybe I'm willing to come down a quarter a point, but you're going to at least make a quarter a point non-refundable.
Well, like when you get to that 5 months, yet, and you're ready to go, at least I got my 5 months, right?
My gas money, my gas money.
But seriously, then they decided to build a house with Synergy, but then I had a PA, and in that it said what they pay me, but then the builder paid me 3%. So, yeah, but the language in that initial one, that's been almost 2 years, I think, it said that you guarantee to pay 3%, unless it's paid by the seller. But the new form doesn't say that. I noticed that the other day.
I just want to skip back real quick because this has already come up, is when you're putting in the property type of property, it's like address and stuff like that, don't limit yourself to an address and have to do a no trade. And I wouldn't listen limit yourself to one property type. We all know this, everybody wants that single family in Palm Beach Gardens and has, a budget of $400,000. Probably not happening. So give yourself some, we'll look at this, but once they start looking at things and find out the reality that if they want to stay in Palm Beach Gardens, they might have to downgrade. Just leave that open so you don't have to change it.
And don't forget, brokers put just home sales Palm Beach, just like how Sean has it to a T. Sometimes we'll see like home sales Palm Beach dash the agent's name, HSPV, whatever, but just brokers, just home sales Palm Beach, or even my name, just home sales Palm Beach. We see that surprisingly a lot.
Okay. But Sean, can I go back to the retainer for a second?
Yep.
Would it be okay if, like, say you just meet a buyer for the first time and you want to get a retainer because you're going to invest in time into them? Could you also put in there, I know it's non-refundable, but could you also say to them, look, I'll take $1,000 to work together. If you buy something, I can take the 1,000 off.
Yeah, it can go towards that.
Okay, it can go, so that would be a great incentive to get a retainer. Because if they're serious about buying,
I think you're going to have a hard time. I think you're going to have a hard time. Retainers is, number one, here's what's going to transpire after August 17th. Is everybody's going to be new to this. You're going to have newer agents that are less experienced, that are automatically going to default to
Don't be that.
a lower commission.
Don't be that.
And, not to mention just the retainer. I don't really see that, might be a compensation negotiation, but I don't see specifically people that are just meeting you for the first time, show up to the house. Hey, you want to see this house? $1,000 retainer. I think you got to give a little to get. So, this is again, I just met you, you just met me, and you're asking me for $1,000 retainer. And haven't even gone over the contract or anything else with me, the process. And
So you can offer like consultation, free consultations and manual charge.
I think everything starts with a buyer meeting, that's really outside the property, because you got to get through this first.
Right.
And that's where, because there's going to be more stress on value of what you provide than kind of what we had to do before, which kind of someone else, in all reality, to be honest with ourselves, someone else was paying, and when we don't put those dollar bills out, it's not in our mind. When you put that in front of them, you watch these conversations turn. I guarantee you that you're going to start here. Wow, what's the average in the industry? What do you provide? And what else? This is going to make buyers question. I've never had to pay this before. This is a new norm. It's not the old norm. So you're going to have buyers that are going to question, what should I be paying? Because they don't even know at that time, which is probably gonna make a portion of them go out and start doing some research. And that may be interviewing multiple people.
So are you allowed to have them, to explain it like this and say, I'm gonna charge 3%, but that's only because I'm gonna negotiate it from the seller, and I can only get from the seller as much as we agreed to on this agreement. But if they don't agree to 3% and they agree to 2%, I'll just do it for 2%. Are you allowed to say that? And not collect the other 1% from the buyer?
If your total is 3%
Mhm.
and you want to charge the buyer 2%,
No, the
right?
seller.
The seller,
Yeah, so
you charge
I'm having a buyer sign the agreement at 3%.
Yep.
And the only reason is because if I'm correct, you can't take more from the seller than what you have on that agreement.
Mhm.
So let's say I show them a house and the seller is willing to pay 2.5%.
Mhm.
So I'm perfectly happy with that 2.5%, and I can waive the whole 3% from my buyer. They don't
Okay.
still have to pay
You
their,
can always go down,
okay,
just can't go up.
Can't go up.
okay.
So I have a question
So
real quick.
wouldn't
not
we
to
explain
interrupt-
it that way? Wouldn't we
Not
just
to interrupt
explain it?
Sean, but on the sell side, everybody here, since this news is broke, has gone on listing. Have sellers asked you about this and what's going on and what's their reaction into it? Because I have feedback from 3 totally different sellers, from multimillionaires all the way down to people that are scraping for dollars. And I had the same feedback from all of them. So what do you guys think? Feedback from sellers?
I think they're still
What do
on.
you want them to sign?
They're informed.
Yeah.
Are they all saying,
They all ask. They don't
are
know
they,
what
they're
benefits
asking,
that
but are
will
they
be.
saying, I don't want to pay the seller? Because I haven't had anybody yet come to us and say.
No.
Well, I think consumers aren't stupid,
They
so
don't
they
think
know
right.
that nobody's gonna work for free.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think the way the contract's listed out of now is gonna bring up more of the conversation of why should I pay?
Watch it.
They were more focused on that total number, and here's what we agree to split, even though we didn't all split it. But,
Can you say because your buyer pool is gonna be larger? You're gonna have
I-
more
I-
buyers come to the
I
house?
think in the reality of it, if we wanna just talk shop, is, you know, we wanna say that people are gonna try to push properties harder than other properties because they should be doing the best for their client. But that's not the reality of life in every scenario. So theoretically, yes, you have a bigger
Yeah,
pool of
because-
buyers.
Feedback from the 3 sellers I've had, one of them I said to myself, is gonna 100% be the perfect client that's gonna say, I don't wanna pay the buy side, every single dollar is gonna move up. And he said the same as I think before I even said anything, he goes, why would I not pay the buy side? Nobody's gonna show the property. I
Right,
said, Mr. Seller, well, it's our fiduciary as agents to show every property regardless of what they commission. And he said, that's great, Greg, but not everybody does that. And
right.
he's absolutely right.
Right.
We all know that.
So,
This is
so,
what's our call. And this
Could
is-
you have said that to him?
yeah, are we
That-
allowed to say that though?
I know that
Okay.
I mean,
realtors are supposed to show all the time, but it may not
he took the
happen.
words out of my mouth. He kind of walked himself in that and said, listen, I said, it's our fiduciary as agents to do and show every property regardless of commission. So therefore, that's kind of your open-ended answer. And he took it out and said, nobody's gonna do that.
Well, I think the other thing is, let's talk about financing.
Yeah.
You know, FHA, 25% of all loans. And better, but let's just stick with FHA. I think any seller would agree that higher demand equals higher value.
Right.
So, Mr. Seller, we cannot offer commission, and, you know, that individual, that buyer, will have to come up with that additional 2.5%. And you have a person that's putting down 3% total. What do you think are the likely chances that you're going to be able to obtain one of those buyers? So what did you just do? You just eliminated 25% of the buyer pool to start. That's just the FHA buyers. Let's not get into all the other cash strap for other situations. And I want you to think back of when you bought when you bought your first home. Did you have $75,000 to put down? It's going to be more attractive for buyers. Buyers want to do upgrades as soon as they need cash for that.
That's
So-
what's really gonna be bad is if we talk our sellers into paying the buyer's agent fee and they're all on board and they pay, and then they go to buy and the next one's not gonna pay it for them. You know, that's gonna look
Well, I'm
bad.
interested to see truly how many, I mean, we've seen 0% listings already, but it's not nearly as much as I thought we would see at this point.
Yeah, I think.
So I'm really, and Sean and I were talking this yesterday, I'm really interested to see truly how many zero, and you will see them for sure. But what the actual, I think it's, in reality, I think we're gonna see a lot less than we think we're gonna see.
So if we come, so we are allowed to call the other realtor and ask, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
ask every time. And if a realtor says, what if they say, they're either gonna say, no, they're not offering a buyer's commission, or if they say, well, it's negotiable, then we
Well,
still have to go.
if they're already in agreement, it's not.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it has to be in the agreement. Okay. Okay. So if the seller says, no, I'm not gonna pay the buyer's commission, but they get a buyer, can that seller still pay late, decide to pay later?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, see, when if I'm gonna show a property, I'm gonna ask for it there. Oh, really?
okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, they don't.
You
show
don't have to
the
show,
agreement.
well, you do not. Just tell you the number.
Well, it's not, they can give you the amount, but this kind of goes to our next,
That's the whole thing, is you're,
Me either.
I'll do one email or text message.
the whole thing about it though, is they're saying that technically that
Let
first
me-
conversation, that the commissioner should be part of the negotiation, regardless if they're paying or not, because you're already supposed to have that buyer broker agreement. So in reality, they're saying regardless if every house you show, the seller is paying commission, you're already supposed to have that buyer broker agreement. So in reality, you shouldn't really quote unquote care right up front what the commission is, because you already have that agreement in place. And it becomes a negotiation. I paid, Pam, are you paying? Yeah, great, we're paying 3% commission. Okay, great. Or no, we're not paying commission. That becomes a negotiating item.
Unless you.
So
I think the concern,
That's-
it's concerned with making those calls and texts from, at least from the DOJ, which is still kind of hot on this issue. And the other settlement's still not done. It's, you can use it to structure your deal, but you gotta obviously watch yourself about saying that I'm diverting, not gonna show that house.
Right,
Yeah.
so that if the buyer is not paying anything, and now you're in the hopes that the seller is giving some sort of concession, but then this particular property that they like, the seller is not offering anything, then.
And what do we do?
But then you go, let's go through that. So compensation, we were talking about, obtaining their listing agreement, because at least you used to be able in the MLS to show the percentage, and then you had the curing clause doctrine under Florida to obtain that commission. Since that's gone, and believe me, I think there's gonna be a lot of clerical errors, I'd like to call them, because I see a lot of contracts, half of them are probably not filled out correctly. I forgot to check your box for compensation after you've already sent them the agreement. Who's paying now? You don't have anything in writing. That's where this agreement comes. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. So along with your offer, you're gonna get this attached, you're gonna solidify your commission, the amount that you've agreed to, because you don't have that. You have no way of knowing what they've agreed to, what they didn't agree to. So if he told you, 2.5%, and it only been, and it's only 2%, and this gets signed, well, I think the other 0.5% needs to come out of his pocket. For the compensation agreement to the seller, this is where you solidify your,
So this has to be done now.
Your
This has to be
compensation.
filled out.
That has.
Yeah. because I think one of the questions I heard recently was like, well, can I just have can I just put in the additional terms of the contract, listing agent to pay buyer's agent X percentage? No,
You can't?
no. You guys
You can,
are not parties to that contract.
you can write the.
That is a contract between the buyer and seller, not a contract between you and the listing broker.
So you can
and-
put in an additional term that seller or buyer requests the seller pay X amount towards prepaid and closing costs. What the buyer does with that closing, but he pays you as the agent. Yes. No.
Put it, the seller, I mean, you can put concessions all the time. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably text them real quick and just say, I need to structure, depending on the scenario, structure the deal. Are there seller concessions? Are there this? Are there that? So I can present an offer. I mean, I think that's simple enough. Again, you can completely communicate, it just can't be on the MLS.
Yeah.
like FHA buyers, they had a statement that they said Patty Ketch was on the real estate commission. She says you can put in that buyer broker agreement, buyer instructs realtor to only show properties where buyer's rep compensation or seller compensation is offered to a buyer's agent. So in your BDA.
I definitely want to kill a lot of deals with that language.
Oh, Nick,
Like, get that out of your
that's what
head.
they're saying, but.
You didn't just hear it.
Rewired it. I mean,
At the end of the day, there should always be a way to figure out a deal. Don't limit yourself. I think,
And so I know.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, legally, yeah, you could just put, I'm gonna limit, you know, showings that only have listings, and I could go around and say, do you have do you have commission? Do you have commission? Do you have a commission? Is that doing good for my buyer and getting them what they want? Probably not. Am I gonna spend like 60 million hours trying to figure out who's got commission? Yeah. Can I, at the end of the day, figure out a way to structure that deal without them? I can go directly to the seller. I don't need to go to the listing agent. I can still structure, seller, you're gonna pay. Here's the offer I'm gonna make you. Okay, he wants offer, you know, he wants asking price. He's not willing to move. They're willing to pay the additional 3% above asking price to roll that in and have your seller pay. We good? Perfect.
When you talk about going to the seller and not the listing agent, the listing agent is the seller for that purpose. Because you are not going to give Sean Batchelor's cell phone number out, because you'll be pissed when you get 50 realtors calling and saying, you are.
I don't need to. I don't need to with the compensation. I don't need to.
But I'm saying if you're going, where some of this verbiage says it's between seller and buyer's agent,
Mhm.
buyer's broker. It's not the seller, it's still the listing agent that the buyer's broker is going to be communicating with, because the seller's hired you to do the
Oh,
job.
you're gonna have to go through the listing agent, yeah.
Yeah, but it says seller. That's
Yeah,
what
but what
it
is- what
says
does he
seller,
care?
but it should say,
Is he not excited to get paid next month?
it's the wording.
It's the wording.
The wording.
on the
It says
contract.
go to seller and then you say,
It should be seller slash buyer's agent.
See, that's what
where
it would say
listing
right
agent-
there. And then all these agents gonna be calling
seller.
sellers.
That
Well, I don't.
That verbiage.
It's verbiage.
But again, just to recap, put that in, especially in the beginning, there'd be a lot of confusion with making sure make sure you get paid. This is gonna make sure you get paid. If someone made a mistake on their end.
Anything before August 17th, we're good, right?
Anything before, well, no,
Like
no,
right
no,
now.
no. So for buyers, if you're currently working with a buyer, by August 17th, they need to be in an agreement.
Brand new buyers.
He needs to be in agreement.
What about listings? Like I have one that's expiring on the 22nd. Do I need to redo that?
Or association, which is kind of really
Maybe.
disappointing
Might as
the
well go
way
ahead
they
and do
handled this.
They're saying that you don't have to, but I.
They said the lead attorney said they were putting out a form for disclosure.
It's in form simply.
Is it out now? Okay.
It's out. Compensation.
Kidding. Essentially.
Yeah, this is the bond disclosure should be given to the buyer, seller, owner of the existing listing agreement or buyer agreement doesn't have this disclosure, which it doesn't. So it just says the brokerage advises the buyer, seller, owner that this compensation disclosure statement relates to your buyer listing agreement. And as a result of the NAR proposed settlement agreement, related practice changes, the following disclosures required. Notice to buyer, seller, and that's in the bold. Brokerage compensation is not set by law and only negotiable. If you have an existing listing, you have to give them this
I think
disclosure.
I'll just do it another way.
It doesn't defeat the listing agreement.
Yeah,
already.
let's give it to them.
Doesn't mean if you have one signed for 5%, it doesn't go away.
But when you give this to the
It doesn't
seller,
matter, they're a listening group.
I know, and you can tell them that they're still gonna fit when they see this. Like,
I don't think so.
They already know. It's
I
already-
think people are, you know,
Yours is
we're
expiring,
treating them
so I'll
as
have
if
to
they're
do it Monday.
stupid. It's not, I don't think that's the case. They know that it's negotiable.
yeah, all
Yeah,
your
but
listings now.
Now, yeah, I mean, if you have something coming up, like Carla, for instance, that's expiring, that's kind of the, where my frustrating situation, because now
they already knew, right? But now it gives them a little bit more leeway to say, okay, cool, I don't want to pay the buy side.
Yeah, but now
So-
they've seen how hard I work for
Yeah.
them. I'm thinking my percentage is gonna go
You
up.
guys are gonna have a hot date at the end.
Now, I think that's what you're gonna need to be concerned about with,
That's how I believe that that's what they're gonna say, because I have done a lot.
It's
And
all
so-
about, listen, at the end of the day, it's all about disclosures, disclosing
Yeah.
what you guys are doing and most importantly, what value are you providing?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have an answer for, as you're my buyer and you ask Greg, why would I pay you 2.5%? And I don't have an answer for you, you probably shouldn't be paying me 2.5%, right? So you guys need to think long and hard about what value you're truly providing for them at percentages. Like you were talking about before, me, probably, you had a great point of, I might do 2.5 and 3%, right? So it just goes to show you in this, in the big picture, this is truly what I'm providing, right? And this is why I suggest paying X, Y, Z, you know, on both sides of the conversation.
And once you
gotta
get that,
provide that.
I don't think the show stops there. I think there's gonna be more pressure on, number one, whatever you can fade, you need to fulfill. For example, if you're a buyer, say, why are you gonna hire me instead of just going to Zillow and I can search my own homes? Well, your pitch might be, I look at canceled, I did FISBOs, I'm doing all this extra work for you. And then you don't keep them updated on that progress, or you don't continuously show value in some other way, however your strategy is. If you've got short-term agreements, probably gonna be short-lived with that representative. So you're gonna have to continue. Like, if you haven't talked to them in a month and you're just waiting on your MLS feed to shoot them listings, again, they could do that on bill. I think a lot of agents are gonna find out they're gonna get fired a lot.
And to also, you know, value there's so many things.
There's a million things you guys do, but you never had to convey it. So I think that's just part of it, just practice. And if you've got existing buyers, you know, that you're gonna need to convert over, it's a good time to practice because you probably already have great relationships with them anyway. So the conversation's a lot
Yeah.
easier than somebody you just met and I've got to go through
Same
this
thing
whole
we've been
pitch.
doing for years.
Seller compensation, seller to buyer's broker, okay. FISBOs. What you'd use for a FISBO, get your compensation.
Seller to claim. Yeah.
And then, you can use this, also for, the situation where you find out your sellers, the seller is offering direct seller to buyer's agent compensation. So they've checked that box. The seller's gonna pay the buyer's brokerage directly instead of the cooperating compensation option.
Why would they do that?
Why would the seller pay
Pay
them directly?
directly?
I think you probably feel you might have a little bit more negotiating. I don't know. What's the difference in you paying or they paying? Them paying, I should say. Good question.
I mean, you know, everybody goes to the title company, here's the money, you've already got.
I mean, the
your
only
title.
reason I could think if
Yada,
they
yada,
wanted to
yada.
limit your interest in it.
I don't,
So, same thing, term. Compensation they're going to agree to. Get it all in writing, attach it to the offer. And make sure it's signed. Anything else? What other questions we got?
Oh, just
Oh,
wait and
boy.
see. Just wait and see.
Do the Q&A.
On the 17th, we're gonna be like calling you.
and you better not send me my phone my application.
That's why I limited said
You
email.
better not
We're
send me
expecting.
your phone now, Sean.
Okay, listen, in reality, legitimately, this is what, third meeting on it now. We're not like set and forget it, don't bug us about this, but I really feel, and Sean can reiterate on this, and we'll probably send out a link, is there is an actual link to like every section we discover through, is it the NAR links or where was it?
I actually have an email.
We're gonna send all that out, so like the first place you guys can go is just verify and double check, review and stuff. So I'm not saying-
I mean, if, I don't know, I know some of you, and I definitely know Sandy and John. But if you listen to that presentation that was recently done by the attorneys in the Florida Association of Realtors,
That was
they
it.
had, every single attorney, probably from their hotline and everything like that. And you got agents asking all these questions. And it was pretty funny to sit there and watch it transpire, because we had like attorney 1, 2, 3, and they all kept saying, here's the link to NAR number 24. Here's the link to that. Like, they weren't answering the questions. They were just shooting you back to the site because all the information is there. It's just like, kind of like these agreements, if you want to see kind of a visual of what's changed in the buyer's brokers agreement, not that we used them in the past, but there was and the listing agreement they have on the Florida Association's website, red lines, so you can see exactly what was removed and what was added, all in one agreement. Yes.
I do have a question. When amending your buyer's brokerage agreement, is there an addendum that we're supposed to use? Or do we actually make the changes on the original?
There's a modification.
It's that letter.
Is there,
your month.
or is it the original that you make the changes on and have everybody initial?
For the, you mean, so you're talking about for the notice?
Oh,
For the buyer
so
broker
it's
agreement.
an addendum,
It's a
modification,
mod.
okay. All modification.
On the buyer's broker or the listing side?
Buyer's brokerage agreement.
There's a one-page mod.
Okay, that's fine.
You could probably do it either way though, right? You could probably also just.
Got
I
it.
know.
Oh, like mark up the original buyer. broker.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think it's all like depending on the situation. If it's one small item or you're changing the date, I mean, it's only.
MEPVSA.
Yeah, it's pretty
Look at the
short.
bottom
It's
part.
pretty short, so like
Okay.
I would probably just to be safe, do the modification to it.
Okay,
Because think if, especially if you're on short-term runs with the people, it's like,
right.
okay, you made it to the second date, but both you guys still aren't really sure if you're gonna move forward.
All this stuff's gonna be on,
It's on
Our
our
app.
apps, yeah.
okay. And I think I had, oh, are we gonna have a disclosure? You know how you have lead-based paint disclosures explaining to whomever what lead-based paint is, blah, blah, blah. Will we also have something short and sweet that we can give our potential clients, if they have not yet signed, explaining
Why you're doing that.
what it is and why we're doing it? Like a disclosure that we can give our buyers explaining what the buyer's brokerage agreement is.
I mean, we could, but in reality, that it should be
It
the
should be
agent's conversation,
my
in that
conversation,
meeting with the
right?
buyer to
Okay.
explain what, why, and then that's gonna curtail into.
Yeah.
Obviously, your compensation and what that value is. So
Okay.
that's gonna kind of primarily.
So that's
Yeah,
the
we did say
agent's
everybody has a
responsibility.
period.
Got it.
And I just, one question about, thought about where it
That's a good
says,
question for him.
whenever it mentions broker, or broker or authorized agent, is there something that says we're the authorized
Yeah.
agent?
On the
I mean,
ICA.
we've always signed our own listing agreement, but
Well, he has the.
you and whenever it just says
I have to find
broker,
it's the agent that's just paying
it's
bill
not
though.
broker or authorized agent, so
Yeah, but let's have him.
that's not changing with us.
Like on the listing agreement.
The listing or
Any
anything.
of these forms where it's supposed to be a broker signing
It
it,
says broker.
it says, it does say broker, so when it says broker sales.
When you're being nuts, going nuts.
Well, no, you're right, and like, that's why I don't sign every listing agreement, because it's broker or sales associate. Execute those, right?
Right.
So that's fine, if it's broker only, obviously, we're gonna sign them. The thing the thing too, is that we're gonna be working on is different independent contractors agreements with everybody. Because now, I can't tell Letty or Barbie or anybody, hey, guys, this is the compensation. We're not charging less than 4%. I can't say that, right? So as a disclosure to everybody in here and all the agents that aren't here, there's gonna be an email going out saying, guys, we're doing a kind of a rework of the independent contractor agreement to say We haven't worked on this yet, 'cause we're going to, it'll be about a month or so, we're just not super worried about you guys doing it. But it's gonna basically say, between us now, as broker and agent, there is going to be a minimum. So that will allow you guys to not go to a listing and say, hey, guess what? I can go happy on commissions and say, I'll charge you $1,000 flat fee.
Which
That's
brands
it,
agents do all that.
because-
They do.
Yeah, and we're not really worried about everybody in here doing that, but now as opposed to me saying, Harlan, you can't charge less than 4%. We're gonna unfortunately have to kind of pigeonhole you guys a little bit, from broker to agents, and say, hey, guys, here's gonna be our minimum splits, right? And if you wanna go out and charge a $1,500 flat fee, you can, but unfortunately, you're not gonna get money. Because you're gonna own a broker.
What's
that's
the
a-
minimum
that's-
gonna be?
We don't know yet, but it's not gonna change anybody's split or anything like that,
Probably the
but
same
it's
as
gonna
what
be
it
about the
is.
same,
Yeah.
it's gonna
What is it now?
financially.
Cause
like-
sometimes I do 4.75.
Oh, no, we like, shoot myself in the foot, but we would always, prior to this, friends, family, not
Right.
everyday occasions allow 4%.
Or
Total,
just
2 and 2, I don't,
Well, why would you want to work for anything less than that?
and that's the thing,
I don't
it's
give a
trying to
shit.
provide,
I for my firstborn.
But you can't, the whole point of the lawsuit was, they were saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
The commission is this much. You can't, but even you telling us that you can't do that because the lawsuit says
Right.
that it's totally negotiable. Obviously, you gotta use, the agent's gotta use common sense and say, I'm not gonna take a 0.5% listing, because you're my best buddy, you know, but you also can't turn around and say the office minimum is this. because that-
No, you were here last time.
no, I can't, but I
Getting old, but my memory's not.
But then
If
that,
you guys don't have, remember, you guys don't have to take it. You don't have to take a listing. If you go up and you say, you can still, you can't get yourself back to the corner and say, I don't do anything less than 2%, and now that's not negotiable. But if Sandy, your seller, says, John, I'm not paying you any more than 1%, you don't have to take that listing.
We know that.
So, and everybody here, for the most part, knows that.
We'll take from that.
So, but that's the point, is now you guys can't technically say, I don't work for less than 4, but it doesn't mean you gotta take a listing, right? So you just gotta be careful how you tread that
You gotta
line.
know your value going into a
Yes,
listing
yes.
agreement, you know, I mean, I don't care who they are, you know.
Sean, but Rena, I have one more.
I think it's, you gotta know your time
Needless
and
to
money.
say,
Yeah.
we're not hiring any.
It's just,
Right.
As long as
just
you
gotta
got
know.
a support.
No,
I
no
have
new agents.
one more question for you, Sean. And again, I did my homework, so I'm not blowing smoke. On box 14, on the acknowledgement, it's acknowledgement modifications, and the last sentence states that the agent may be paid a separate fee for bringing a buyer to the seller. And the way I understand it is that if I'm the listing agent and Joe walks in and says, I want you to be my right buyer, right? So now Joe wants to buy Lisa's listing, so now I'm the agent for both parties.
Yep.
I have both separate agreements,
Mhm.
right? So that's wherein falls that I could be paid a separate fee. My question is, because I'm representing both sides, do I stick to my guns and say, okay, I'm getting 3% from you and 3% from you, because that's what we signed off on, or am I gonna be more,
Well, I think
One of
this is more,
these
this is
and-
more, I mean, we're gonna, I think
Is there
everybody's gonna kind of
anything-
learn as they go, excuse me, and I'll go back to kind of that EXP agreement. It's the way that they put a listing agent representing a buyer's agent, if they were just to come to them directly, because we know that's no doubt gonna happen.
right, you're gonna
There's
represent
gonna be
both
a
sides?
portion, and they're gonna represent both sides because they can. Is, if you Google it, find it online, they really minimalize the buyer's agent when the listing agent is the same person, or I should say, you know, it says something to the effect of,
Cause
we don't
anybody could
represent
bring a
this,
buyer.
but we may represent that party, basically filling out, so something like filling out. Things like that. It just makes it seem like a very minimal job.
Which is not the case.
So if you have,
Right.
this is gonna be tomorrow, but as sellers
They're gonna learn.
But it's to let people know though, that I could be getting paid both sides if, you know, if I'm representing you, Mr. Seller, and I bring you a buyer, just know I will be compensated both sides. But that's what that is to acknowledge. There's nothing more to it than that. Perfect.
I think it's so exciting. You guys do gain market share from just being around.
Anything
Oh,
else?
what's the application? Year to date?
Oh, new realtors, oh, I didn't, the talk is that, in the decline, yes. people are
They
not-
said it was like 17%. I
Oh,
think
back
down the
then,
last time.
yeah.
I don't know what it is now.
Yeah.
Is anybody gonna use the retainer here? I mean,
Unless I got
the
the
money
money
for
situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm leaving next week.
well, you
Sorry, I won't be
gotta
available
go
for you, but I'll
to,
take the retainer.
Yeah, so what
Oh,
if
wait,
they
I'm
tell
taking my
you,
son to dinner.
my
I need
lease is
500.
up in 6 months, but I want to start. looking
Need more than that.
for it.
You need more, I was gonna say, is that enough for
And now I have been doing that for somebody.
And not get gas or money for your time. Because
Right.
that was the situation with that couple that I
So
got.
with leases would be a good time to have a retainer.
Then they go to a official. or open house.
I mean, I think every situation can be different.
Yeah.
And it's, you're gonna have to take it one by one.
Okay.
I mean, because, you know, think about it. Think about 35% of the sales in the last 12 months have gone to out of county agents. So when we ask ourselves, why can we not be more competitive than them as far as pricing? Someone that's driving to Miami. So, you know, can I offer, I mean, at the end of the day, isn't it all about how much I need to make an hour? So I think those are situations when you go in and you're interviewing that buyer. Does that buyer already know what they want? Have they done the research? Are they already pre-approved? Is this their first time? Kind of calculating that in your head, you know, how much.
Right.
We all know that, but, you know, I think that gives you at least a little bit of a gauge of how much,
Right.
you know, effort you're gonna have to put into that.
Well, I
person.
did tell this.
Or if the guy came in and say, I'm pre-approved, XXX, here's the house I want, here's the offer.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, just pay me.
Are you gonna
$10
charge-
and tell me fine.
Charge the 2.5.
I do like the idea of maybe a tenant looking to buy. I do have that person. And he's not very communicative, but I did tell him on our last